before I forget. And then I also started our little AI companion as well to summarize the meeting. Um, so yeah, a few quick announcements before we get started. Elections are here. So we're gonna have an email sent out very shortly. Please check your emails for that, voting email and vote for any new members or returning members for PA Gap. We have a new position, the PA Gap ambassador. So this is someone who's going to be interested in joining us at a higher level, getting more involved, or just finding some opportunities to connect more with the chapter and with the national as well. So keep an eye on your emails for that. We have our summer conference, which is happening at Rutgers University, or we call it Super Conference. All East Coast, essentially, chapters are going to be joining us at Rutgers to talk about the latest trends. There'll be presentations happening on various topics in GEM. And that's going to be from June 4th to 5th. I believe there is still time to register if you haven't already. And I believe there's still hotel rooms as well if you haven't booked those yet. Any other announcements? Betsy? That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I just put the PA Gap ambassador form in the chat for anybody that's interested. So the position is really for you to be a true ambassador of the chapter. So very low commitment. It's sharing things on social media. It's telling people about PA Gap when you're at college fairs or different events. It's providing us feedback from what you hear out there to see if there's anything that we can do better. So people who maybe don't want to be on the executive board or have a lot of time to commit, but still want to be an advocate for the chapter, this is a great way to get involved. And we will put the registration link for the conference in June. We'll put that in the chat in a bit too.
So just by show of hands, who was able to make NAGAP Summit? Cool. If you weren't, that's okay too. That's what we're here for. And we do encourage everyone to attend that summer conference because from what we're hearing, it's going to be a big one. So we're really excited about that. I figure I'd just start by giving a quick overview. The meeting conference took place in San Francisco this year. We had a really great keynote speaker. His name was Javon. And he talked a lot about the different feelings that we're all experiencing in GEM, running on empty. A lot of us always give from like an empty cup, he said. And so he really asked us to reflect a lot and to, what did he say? He said like, come alive. He wants us to find our inspiration for work again. He wants us to find our purpose and our drive. As we know, we're not in higher ed for the money. So we all experience the many different issues, the many different hats that we wear, but it's important to also just check in with ourselves and also with our teams to make sure that everyone's doing okay and to try to find ways that we can share in a lot of the responsibilities that we have and share in our successes and celebrate as well. Any other thoughts on keynote, or how does that make you guys feel? How do you come into work every day? Is it seasonal? What's the mood right now?
A little exhausted, to be honest, getting to April 15th. And it never feels like things are wrapped up neatly after that important deadline. It's been such a difficult year, and I know you're all feeling it too with we've had international students have their visas terminated. We've had faculty lose their grant funding. Thankfully, last week was a boost to hear that our students at Lehigh had their visas reinstated. So that was a relief, but it just feels like just sort of hold your breath every day and wait for what's coming next, and keep trying to remember why we do this work.
So I'll put out to the group, what keeps you going?
I don't want to sound cliche and say our students, but like kind of our students. And for a lot of us, our programs are pretty quick and cyclical. So we get to see the end results somewhat soon after they start. And as we come upon commencement, it really is my favorite time of the year. Like, great, fantastic. We've made it through. Now get out. But get out and like go do what you came here to do. And so that does make me very happy because they're psyched. They worked hard and they're psyched to actually take this and go with it.
Well said.
I love your rocket ships, Mandy.
Great. So I'm just gonna get into some of the sessions and kind of things that stood out to me. If other folks have topics that they're interested in, feel free to shout them out. We can take this on a ride in really any direction. So don't feel like we're just restricted to the meeting topics or the session topics that were presented at NAGAP Summit. So one of the sessions that stood out to me, I forget the name of it, but it was someone said 60% of students are searching on mobile for their schools. So I wanted to hear folks' thoughts on mobile usage. Do you think your students are on their phones when they're looking at your schools? Are you using social media ads? How are your prospective students talking about your schools? Are you getting applications on mobile? Or is your website and application mobile friendly? So I just wanted to kind of survey the group and see what you're doing in the mobile sphere.
Hi, so I can speak for the University of Pittsburgh School of Dental Medicine, and yes, we are doing everything in terms of thinking about the mobile aspect, in terms of our websites, in terms of hosting events. Everything is able to be viewed in a mobile format, and there are lots of students who may apply using an iPad or things of that nature. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think mobile is huge. We're getting applications through mobile as well. And so I think about 2 years ago, we went and made sure like our webpage on the mobile view is user friendly and you don't have to scroll forever because our audiences they're not as patient. They want everything very quickly. And so we want to be able to make sure that they can access the app or the visit link or whatever CTA we have as quickly as possible. And our demographics have changed to a younger audience and they're on their phones all the time. And so making sure even like texting, we put into our communication because we find that they respond to texting more than a phone call or even emails. Although sometimes we see that they opened an email, but they're like, I've never seen that email. What are you talking about?
I think too, I've noticed more this year, even with emails, and in one of the sessions too, they mentioned email still being the #1 way to communicate with students. Some people were surprised by that. My students will email me back almost immediately because it's in the palm of their hand, right? So other times I felt like it takes students 6 hours, a day, a week, never to respond to us.
That is a good point. So like email is still, I would say for us, the #1 communication. And for texting, we find that texting works better for event reminders and event invites versus like, hey, get your transcript in, because especially with all these spam texts that people get, I don't think that's like attractive to people. So that's just something to note.
So how many texts is the right number of texts? I always get this question. How often should we bother our students or nudge them? Should it be every event reminder, info session? Should it be only big ones? Do you text an acceptance to students? What are y'all's thoughts on that? Even if you're not texting currently, but how do you feel about that?
We only text for the larger events, like the webinars and stuff. We still like promote through email because it can be a turnoff when we over communicate with students. I feel like they get very like, please leave me alone, or like we become like sales people. Like think about our own lives, right? Like I know with some people that work with OPMs, like it sounds great, but like when people like are like you put in a RMI form and like 30 seconds later you get like something, it's like, okay, like just give me a second, right? Like for most people, but then others are like, yes, thank you for reaching out so quickly. So it's, I don't know how to answer that, Angelo.
It's about like finding a balance between speed to lead, and I don't have a fun thing that rhymes, but like being bothered or being a pain in the butt, you know. And something else I think about too, Betsy kind of alluded to this, but we're texting them back, right? So if we send out 1,000 text messages, you got to be ready to respond to 1,000 text messages. And how do we find balance, work-life balance, when we're texting that many students? Or are we the only people texting back our students for our program, for our school? Or is that split between multiple people? Or are you assigning students to different people? Texting's a big conversation. I know at Lehigh, we've talked about texting, and then we kind of stepped back a little bit once we realized how much extra work that could be for us, and we're already stretched a little thin. So does anyone else have any thoughts about texting? Are you guys thinking about texting? Are you already texting?
Angelo, I'm sort of with you on worrying about, even if it's just like an informative, like, we want you to know about this upcoming event kind of text that doesn't need a response. I feel like we're going to be managing a lot of responses, and this year at Lehigh, we contracted with Unibuddy, so we had the Unibuddy chat on our web pages, and I was, as a staff member, part of the you know, people that you could contact through Unibuddy, and while the volume was definitely manageable, it was never Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 that I was getting Unibuddy messages. It was Friday nights and, a lot of international students. So the time zone, time changes. And those, like a text, you want to respond to quickly. So I was like, oh, what have I gotten myself into?
It's a great
So
transition. And
yeah.
anybody, AI bots, chat bots. So are other folks using chat bots on their website currently? We mentioned Unibuddy. It's not a chat bot, but it's like peer-to-peer. And then we have Gecko on our website currently for a chat bot.
We
So are other
actually
folks
ended
using-
our chatbot contract because nobody was using it on either end, right? Guests weren't using it, and then people that had access in the university were not responding. Instead, we do nothing in terms of AI chat or live chat. Undergrad does texting, but they'll do it around bigger events. And it's like, gather in a room, folks, and this is what's going to happen. And then we switched to, with Hulda, we use kind of directive cards. So if you've been visiting our website, you'll get another card to kind of direct you through the funnel that will help answer some general questions.
So Kitty, why do you think folks aren't using the chat bots?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I truly don't know. Maybe people are onto it. Like some of the older chat bots that weren't integrated with AI and they were set and forget, then people weren't finding the answers anyway. So I think they're tired. Some audiences are tired of it. With the younger demographic, right? Like a 17-year-old is going to find an answer on Reddit before the chatbot can actually put it all together. So I think that it was just not being used.
Yeah, I mean, we found at Lehigh, actually, for engineering, I'll speak for 100% of chatbot users are international students, or 99.999. I rarely ever, if at all, see a domestic student using a chatbot. I think because of time zone differences, chatbots could be useful because we're not working 24/7. But also chatbots need to be trained extensively. And even after training them extensively, sometimes they still don't get the right answers because there's a random outlier department that gives contradicting information on their part of the website that's not on the admissions website. So, you know, different things to think about when considering a chatbot on your website. And then the other thing that was brought up was Halda. We are using the Halda form at Lehigh. It's getting us a pretty good stream of inquiries. But we're not utilizing like the personalization as much as I feel like we could be, because we do collect all of that data, but faculty members aren't looking at that data currently, as far as I understand. So it's about packaging that and pushing that back into your comm flow in some way. Because I know a lot of the meetings also at Summit, we're talking about personalizing emails more so. So that students feel like they get to know you a lot better as a university, as an individual who's, you know, the recruiter, the face of the university. Students want to build a relationship with folks. Somewhere in my notes here, I think I have that there was like a certain percentage that students wanted to talk to a human being. So hopefully our jobs won't get shut down. But it's taken over by robots.
64% of
Yeah.
prospective students wanted to actually speak with an admissions advisor over an academic. That was from my session. Thanks, Angela.
Okay, so that was a good transition for your session and working with faculty. And so
Wait, can you say it one more time? I'm sorry. I wanted to catch that. 64% wanted to speak to
An admissions counselor, an admissions advisor over an academic.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, so hopefully robots aren't taking over our jobs. And we're always looking for new ways to work with faculty. Like there's the concept of a student emailing a faculty member who never responds. I know a lot of us experience that issue commonly. Or a student wants to get more about the academic curriculum or course or student experience, right? So then it goes back to the ambassadors. If your school doesn't have an ambassador program, I would recommend considering starting one. Not like they don't trust us, but it just adds a voice. It adds another layer of personalization to the recruitment process when you have an ambassador team. Or, you know, just us as individuals connecting with students on an individual level versus through, I know we all have these like comm flows with automated messaging. Like I know mine says like, hey, I'm Angelo, come talk to me. But a fraction of the students respond to that, of course, right? So I know I went in a couple different directions, but I think I'll lean in on Kitty's topic a little bit since she's here. Working with faculty. What has your experience been working with faculty this year? Do you have any tips and tricks?
Right, so for baseline, it was delivering on promises, working with faculty to ensure that what you're delivering in the classroom meets what you're marketing. And we took it from from marketing to classroom to student success model and kind of talked it all the way through. You know, stressing again that the happy student that went through everything is your best form of advertising and your free form of advertising. So it was how to approach those conversations, how to kind of sometimes rein faculty in or sit down and collaborate, be at the table when they're making changes. So you know sooner rather than later what's coming along so that you can have that voice or you can kind of correct courses as they're making changes. And in that, yes, we had that cute little statistic about wanting to speak with counselors.
And how often do you meet with your faculty, Kitty?
Very often. So I meet with them annually to discuss enrollment goals, but then I meet with them, I'm on the grad council. So for us, that is program directors, deans, and other graduate faculty that are represented. We talk through all sorts of things, policies, procedures, enrollment goals. And then I meet with them informally, formally, like multiple times throughout the semesters because we have just things going on. Sometimes I get more out of chatting with them over a lunch than I would like an official meeting with an agenda. or just go pop in on their office and see what's new. Now, I know some other universities have a more formalized system. They might have counselors that are dedicated to different faculty and different kind of offshoots. I'm an office of one and a 1/2 professional support person, so it is me. But I'm thinking about Betsy, who just went off camera, so she's probably dealing with something, but I know that her office is set up that the different individuals are meeting with certain programs. And I think that helps too, because you're just kind of circling back just to see what's up.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, at least for Lehigh Engineering, Lehigh is decentralized, and each college has its own way of recruiting and connecting with faculty different times of the year. I report to the associate dean for engineering, so faculty. And a lot of times I feel like there's a little bit of a divide between faculty and staff, where if I send an email out to everyone, they won't respond. But if, our associate dean sends an email out, then it grabs their attention. Or in another session too, I think it was Joe who said this, Joe Paris, he sends out a memo. And it's like a more official way of getting faculty's attention because it's on university letterhead and it looks really important. And so we've actually used memos and continue to use memos for important large scale events that we need to get faculty buy-in for and representation. Another thing that I've experienced too is that I want to communicate more and connect more with my program directors, but they just don't have the time. And so we did create an end of cycle event for Lehigh Engineering where we get all the faculty to come together, talk about the successes, what they want to work on, what's new, and any kind of emerging trends. And I usually present on all this NAGAP stuff. So that's a reason to go to NAGAP Summit or to the East Coast Conference. Bringing back this data and this information to faculty members sometimes can nudge them in the right direction. And I did use food because they did not come to the meeting without food. So last year using food was a big factor. We did it over lunch and it was like an 1.5-hour lunch where we presented on marketing and enrollment to all of the program directors.
Does anybody else have any good, like surefire ways or like a disaster that we should never repeat? Good to know.
I've also kind of used incentivization for faculty members who maybe don't get involved. We have our champions, of course, that you don't have to ask and they're there to help. But then there's, I would say 70 or 80% otherwise that don't get involved. We need their help a lot of times. And so, you can work with your associate deans or deans to maybe use funding or different things. Those who participate more get a bigger piece of the pie. Admissions is everyone's job. We've used these terms often. And so you got to play hardball sometimes, but there's a balance, right? And I think that we need to work together more than anything. So I would only use those kind of, I don't know what to call them, bait or, ways to get them more excited and more eager to help us out.
I feel like, Angelo, you may have also shared shaming works.
Oh yeah, that too.
But you were saying that in a very lovely way, not in a very menacing way.
Yeah, so it's for context, like we have a problem with decision times. So we did a Salesforce report on time to decision from application submitted to decision being released. And we celebrated the successes of those who had like a 2-week turnaround or less. And then we, kindly, lovingly shamed those who did not. And the enrollment numbers showed that as well. So students who committed because they got a faster response time than those who did not. So a lot of times I hear from faculty, well, we want to see more data. We're data driven. We showed them the data and the data spoke for itself. So feel free to use that one if anyone needs.
Can I bring up a topic, please?
Go for it.
Okay, so there was a session that was put on by DD. DD Agency is a marketing agency. They really help with like inbound, outbound personalization kind of thing. But also they're taking on a project for NAGAP to help figure out how much it costs to market to our graduate students. There is nothing that is comprehensive that's out there right now. There are all sorts of theories about undergrad, but nothing that is for grad. So I am wondering if anybody on this call, when they received the email from, it would have been from Marcus Hanscom, who works for DD. If you participated in that initial survey study, and if not, will you please? I'm going to work on getting the link for us all for the survey that we can kind of follow back up with. It is just for marketing. So it wouldn't be like then what you spend on a new student event. It is truly like, how much are your vendor partnership contracts? What is the cut of your CRM that you're using? We happen to share an instance, so I like cut that contract in half, right? We pay half, they pay half. What maybe you spend in digital, in print materials or recruitment events, that kind of stuff. So it's just going to be for that. It will be a living and breathing survey and study, and they will turn it back around with all the participants so that you can use it internally to say, hey, listen, the average spend is, $1,000 per student, and we're spending 50 cents per student. Could we up this, please? And I think it'll help really give us a stronger voice in when we're advocating for ourselves. So if it's okay, Angelo, after everything's said and done, when I get the link, we'll send it back out to everybody.
Yeah, sure.
It was an interesting session. Of the participants that they had so far, the cost varies like greatly. Like it was all over the spectrum. And they'll send out their initial findings too. But some of the initial spends for some schools were like $2,000 per student, and that might not actually be feasible for that institution that's spending that money. But they never actually stopped to break it all the way down, and that's what they're helping to do for us.
And I guess like the how we spend, right? So an average
Yeah.
number is helpful, but what specific things are you doing to ensure that each student is targeted in a specific way? Different types of students, different program types, all that stuff. So
Correct.
I always take it with a grain of salt, because it's an
That's
average
a good
of
point.
everything.
That's an excellent point. They're hoping that, version 2.0 will help to break down maybe some programs a little bit more, because some of us have some very specialty programs, while others are doing a spend for many of the same programs. They're going to start kind of deciphering that a little bit more for us.
And I think too, there's a little bit of a fear of, oh no, maybe we're not doing this the right way, or maybe we're afraid to know how much money we're actually spending on something. So if you get hit with a brick wall, let us know, and maybe we can help you guys advocate for the survey.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, because like in the College of Arts and Sciences, for years and years and years, we didn't really do any sort of marketing. It was very grassroots. And then the last few years, we have invested, but we've had a lot of kind of initial costs involved in that won't be recurring. So I'm very interested, and I'd love to participate in the survey, but I think like I would need to break it down even further to distinguish between, this number might seem very high, and it's because we had to build out the creative aspect in addition to the ad buys and things like that. But yeah, I can't wait to see the results of this.
I wanted to pivot into a different topic. So I went to this session from Washington that talked about pre-PhD mentorship. So essentially they have a program where master's students and PhD students can mentor incoming prospective students, usually their senior year that they're graduating. And through this mentorship program, they have a nice steady funnel that comes through each year. But then if the students don't arrive after completing this, I think it's like a 6 month to 1 year program, it still builds brand recognition for them, right? So they're essentially teaching you what it's like to be a PhD student, what to expect throughout the PhD process. How do PhD applications work, right? So PhD students have to submit a statement of purpose, which is different from an admissions essay, different types of recommendations, how to ask for PhD recommendations. And I thought all this was like really amazing and great content. I know I'm always thinking about ways that we can educate as universities, because, you know, we may each have like, I don't know, a tiny session on our campus that's dedicated to helping students, our own students, find PhD opportunities elsewhere. But this seemed to be like a virtual program that was open to the whole country at the University of Washington. So what are your thoughts on mentorship and education, I guess I would say, like how to apply to universities, almost like a grad 101? So I know I'll speak to something that we tried this year through Engineering Gap. So Engineering Gap is the community through NAGAP that's comprised of all the different engineering schools in the country. If you haven't joined already, let me know and I'll get you on the list. We tried this year a engineering 101 for prospective students. We sent invitations out across the country to many different schools, and we actually got over 150 people to show up. And all we did was talk about, we each split up the slides, so there were maybe 12 different slides on various topics: how to apply to grad school, what grad schools are looking for, what you can do to make yourself stand out in the crowd. And we shared those inquiries with each other as well. So they were highly qualified prospective students. And it's a little bit of giving back and collaborating, right? So it's all these different schools working together to recruit grad students and I guess teach folks. Have you done something like this before? Would you consider something like that? On the education side, like how do we get our students more aware of our processes, and who's responsible for teaching students how to apply to grad school, or do they just figure it out on their own?
That I feel like is a complete session all in itself of who's responsible for teaching them how and when, right? Because we all don't have traditional students anymore who just transition right into. So, you know, like my first thought was like, oh, your career center, but like that doesn't hold weight anymore because people leave school and then get a job and then switch careers, or Angelo, you probably run the gamut with the age groups in engineering, some coming straight out of undergrad, where some are working professionals that have to come back. Yeah, where does that live, and what does that look like? And I feel like that's a loaded question.
Another hat that we wear.
Yeah, I know. Who guides them and when? I don't know.
So I always talk to students in the context of, you know, even if you end up somewhere else, I want you to lead with a positive experience. And
Yeah.
a lot of international students especially sometimes feel like nobody's answering their emails, right? They'll send an email blast to 1,000 schools, and I'm the one guy, or maybe one of many, but that answers their email. And they're surprised by that because it's super unpersonalized. But I turn it around and I make it personal. And so I found that a lot of students who can't come here because they're only looking for funding at least have an idea of how PhDs work, right? I have so many students that apply for PhDs only because they're funded. And that's the only reason they're going to do them, because they're funded. Otherwise, you know, they may not be qualified for a PhD, but they see free money and they say, that's a way for me to come to school. And so I've done a lot of work kind of re-educating students who are looking at PhDs to consider masters instead, and the benefits of a master's compared to a PhD, and even the different types of master's degrees that we offer in different fields and different careers. So yeah, we can become advisors on the fly, but I also preface it with, I'm not an academic advisor, but, and then kind of explain that process to them. And then connect them to faculty. That's a perfect opportunity for a handoff if you have someone who's willing to speak with a student on more of an advising kind of way. But you have to have those people available. Otherwise, it looks bad when you hand off to someone and they don't respond either.
And Angela, with the Washington program, were faculty involved at all in any of those presentations?
They just made recommendations. It was mostly run by the, I would say the admissions folks in grad admissions. And they compiled all that information from faculty to present to the students.
Yeah.
Rather
Okay.
than the faculty actually doing the work, to my understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Because asking faculty to give their time to students who may not even end up here, good luck.
Yeah.
Were there any sessions that you all flipped through and saw and thought, oh, I wish I had gone to NAGAP at least for that session? Maybe Angela and I, one of us had gone to it, and we can report on it. Okay. I will talk, if it's okay, I will talk about one that I found interesting. I sat in a session called Whose Job Is It Anyway? Which, like, right there, I love it. And the discussion that came up was having an orientation again halfway through programs, because we overload students with so much information right at the front end, but then sometimes they don't remember it or where they heard it or what's going on, and they need a reminder. And it's a good refresher. And I think it's something that I would like to personally implement. And then they talked about a career center skill shop workshop that has been introduced on different campuses. And that was a really interesting piece too, because sometimes our adult and grad students don't need the basics like resume writing skills. Sometimes they need to tighten up their skills, and that workshop kind of could help. And sorry, Danae, I saw your hand go up right after I was already like, yeah. So jump on in, answer what's up.
Oh, I had a question for those who attended. So I missed this year's NAGAP conference, and I'll be at the East Coast one though. And I wanted to learn about any trends that folks seen regarding funding. I feel like each year, I get inundated with students who want and need full funding, and I'm used to it from my international students, but I'm also now noticing this trend in domestic students where a lot of people are expecting full funding or a very high tuition scholarship. And so I'm having these navigating these conversations, and there's these unrealistic expectations that a high amount are getting full funding, where that's just not the case for our school, at least. You know, we're public, and my school is the School of Public and International Affairs at Pitt, and we're decentralized. So I can't say if another school has a lot of grant funding if they're doing that. However, from what I hear, that's not the case. And from what I hear from other like APSIA schools and schools, that's also not the case. So I'm just wondering if anyone's hearing, where is this misinformation coming from, where everyone's expecting a like full tuition kit and caboodle to go to graduate school, and how are you, or what strategies are folks implementing to educate students into funding options not being just the schools offering you a full ride, but you're going to have to do a lot of legwork in order to get something like that, and it's not as common. So just wanted your thoughts on that.
I deal with this
Great
question a
question.
lot.
Yeah.
And so I actually created this page of external scholarships. So I say, you know, Lehigh, all we have available are merit-based scholarships that could cover a maximum, you know, a 50% tuition, but that's very rare. And then I hit them with this link and I say, you're welcome to apply to any of these external scholarships. I'm sure for every program in every area, there may be a list of different ones that students can be considered for. These all have different timelines, different applications, and different populations, right? So at least having this in my back pocket, I don't feel as bad when I talk about funding and the limits on funding. But you have to be real with them. Yeah, we don't have full funding for master students and PhD students. Nobody really knows what's happening with the funding situation across the country right now. So I think transparency is key, and giving them an option is helpful too. But I'd love to hear others' thoughts.
So Danae, I had to correct a faculty member here to say, stop telling people that their master's program should be paid for. And he said, well, mine was. And I'm like, cool, dude. That was 30 years ago. And you did an MA/PhD program in psychology, right? Like we're talking about something that was like so minute. So yeah, I've only been able to like correct it when I hear it and like at the source. But I don't know, this conversation is increasing and I don't know if it's because of, again, like misinformation that's going out around there of just, it should be this way. But I'd love to know more of like how to kind of nip it. Angela, thank you so much for sharing this page and like just giving us food for thought of maybe how to like redirect some of these conversations too. This is great. Thank you.
They could also work in higher ed to get their grad degree paid
We,
for.
you know, I talk about that sometimes too. Like if there's a program that is of interest at a school that you're interested in, maybe that can work. But you know, sometimes there's a wait time too. You have to work there for so long and whatever. Shivana,
Or,
no, I look
yeah.
forward to hearing what that NPR piece that you shared. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I hadn't seen that NPR thing, but I'm definitely gonna look into that. I know I have federal loans myself that are, you know, in danger right now, so it's a scary time.
I have like 7 browsers open from all the stuff you guys are dropping in the chats that I want to like look at later. So thank you. It was awesome.
It's a bigger conversation than just like federal grants and loans and things like that. I feel like managing expectations of our prospective students too, because I don't know if you all deal with this, but even with our graduate assistant program, where some of the tuition is covered or even sometimes full tuition, they're still like, well, what about housing? I'm like, people, you guys are getting this like fully covered, like pay for housing. It's called welcome to adulthood, you know? And so I think it's like, yes, some of the stuff is scary with the loans and stuff, but also what's happening with some of the audiences is that they're expecting things to just be given and not like having to work for certain things. And I think that's yeah, they're always looking for more stipend increases and things like that. So yeah, managing expectations is something that we're dealing with.
Food too, honestly. I talk all the time about how we offer free breakfast on Tuesdays for grad students. And sometimes that's like the big decision factor for them. They're like, oh, that's one meal I don't have to pay for like once a week. And our students take advantage of that.
I have had to have some pretty real conversations with a lot of our admitted international students about GA positions because they think that even if they didn't get full funding, that they can secure a GA position and that they're covered. And it's just not realistic that that's going to happen. Especially for master's students, you know, maybe they're in a 1-year program and a lot of our GA positions don't even get posted until closer to fall semester. And if a student, you know, needs to show that they have funding in order to get a visa, like the timing is never going to work. Even if they were considered for one of these positions. And, you know, I mean, at Lehigh right now, we have a hiring freeze and, you know, some real budget issues. So we never even know if there will be GA positions posted, but and I feel so terrible when I have to have those conversations with students, but I think one of you just said it's like setting the expectation in a realistic way. And, you know, I've just had to say, like, that is not going to happen. If that is what you're counting on to get you here, it's not going to happen. And it's a hard conversation to have, but I feel like I just can't, you know, give students false hope. And also, a lot of them will email literally every department across the university asking if they have positions available.
I think if anything, it just shows like students have this mindset of thinking if I just work harder, if I just email 1,000 people, then maybe one of them will respond, and that's how I get my GA. So there must be someone out there telling the story that all you had to do was send, you know, 3,000 emails, and maybe someone like a lottery, like the more you play, maybe you'll win one day. But that's the reality for many of these students. They think that if they get this GA, TA, or a position, it'll be life changing, and it's not. there's no formula to it necessarily. So just giving, realistic expectations, a process, and I hit them with what I put in the chat. Not the GA is not a free ride, but that, at Lehigh for engineering, our GAT and our right positions are typically for PhD students. But they can try applying for any open remaining positions, but the reality of that, it's slim to none. Unless they're already here, unless they're already familiar with the faculty member, or they'll just blast all of our faculty members with emails too. Mandy said.
Don't you want to put out, like, that's another session, like, not only how and when to apply to grad school, but like how to then behave when you're
Etiquette.
seeking these positions is like, this doesn't bode well, because guess what? Like, everybody then redirects those emails to like me, and I say, oh my gosh, you haven't like read anything or done anything you've been told. Like, negative.
Yeah. Well, Kitty, you bring up a good point, because something that we've been talking at the executive board level for PA Gap is to maybe do like a college fair at a larger school. But in addition to that, have a panel of experts like you all to talk about things like that, how to apply, how to, look at the right program, but also like how to behave is a huge thing, because you're building your resume throughout this whole time, right? And so I think it is a good reminder for students, like, hey, like, calm down sometimes, make sure you read. Like, and the other point from the other side is like, with faculty and other people around campus, I wish sometimes we all sent the same message, because I think it's actually smart for students to email 1,000 people, because they're waiting for one person to just have like that, their heartstrings pulled, like, oh yeah, let me look into that. Why can't we do that? And then it opens up a whole can of worms, right? And so I wish we could be like, all right, guys, this is the message we're sending. No one like deviate from that, please.
I have
Yeah,
to jump on that one more time. Sorry. So our grad council brought up waiving the parking fee for our grad assistants. And we were like, no, come on, no. Everything else is getting taken care of. They can pay for a year parking pass that half the time they don't even do, because they just park illegally. No.
Were there any other, we got about 10 minutes left. Were there any other hot topics we wanted to dive into? Or do we want to talk about maybe getting together at the East Coast Conference? Any ideas?
I've never attended a summer conference. And I'm excited about this East Coast conference and wanting to learn how is it different. I've attended the GEM Summit 2022 and 24. So how is it different from the GEM Summit? Obviously it's smaller, but what's some tips for first timers that you would recommend for a summer conference?
I would say just go in with an open mind. We're a friendly bunch, right? You could stick with your chapter, at first, and we're more than happy to introduce you to folks. Check out the sessions ahead of time once those are announced. Pick and choose which topics you think are interesting. I always try to introduce myself to presenters if I don't already know them after a presentation. That way you can build a network. I utilize LinkedIn heavily to follow people, because it's not just about what they're saying at the conference, but what they talk about throughout the year. So following those, I guess, big speakers and what they're doing. Try to find a mentor. We do have a mentorship program through NAGAP. Those are the quick tips and advice that I have. I don't know if any others have tips for first conferences.
Yeah, so there is going to be just kind of a get together the night before. And today, considering your distance, I'm assuming that you're going to travel out the day before. And that might be just a good way to like just meet additional people. So it's going to be relatively small in terms of compared to NAGAP, but still it's 5 chapters coming together to host this. So I mean, the amount of people will still be pretty significant. And I think that's a great way to continue to break open your network. You're not a shy person. So like, it'll be interesting to see the sessions. In summers past, the Pennsylvania one has really only had like 1 session for everybody. because we've been so small. So I think that this is going to be really, really interesting to like come and have breakouts for all the different groups as well.
Yeah, the sessions will be posted in the next week or so. So you guys can all take a look at that. And people can present, but I think the proposals and all that, that's all done. So we've selected the sessions for the summer conference. But it's smaller, which I personally like because NAGAP is awesome. I love it. And you know, you get so energized when you're at Summit and all of the PDI events and things like that. But the summer conference is going to be a lot smaller. I think we were at like 167 registered and counting. And so you get a chance to really mingle and get to know each other, especially within your chapters versus like 800 people.
And then somebody said coming in the day before. That was the other thing that I couldn't figure out quite on the agenda because it looks like the 4th and the 5th had stuff coming in. So when I live in Abington, PA, which is on the eastern side in Montgomery County, PA. And I work a lot remotely for Pitt. So wondering, like, do folks commute back and forth to Jersey, or are they like usually coming in and then spending it over and coming the day before? Like, how are folks doing that who live on like the eastern side of the state?
I think a lot of people are staying because there's like 2 hotels that are recommended. And I put in the chat the link to the conference info, information on the conference. But I think most people are staying over at least Wednesday into Thursday, and driving in Wednesday morning.
Okay.
Because the check-in starts Wednesday at like 1 p.m. and there's like a couple sessions Wednesday, and then in the evening we're doing a social event, and then Thursday morning check-in starts at 8 a.m.
But if you can't make the first day, that's okay. It's optional. So
Okay, so the first, that's what I was confused about, like the first day being optional, but then I saw that there were sessions on the first day, so I was like, okay, is this
Yes,
make
it's
sense?
optional.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
cool. Any other last minute thoughts? Otherwise, we'll see you guys at the summer conference. Going once. All right, well, thanks everyone. It was a great session. I think we all learned a lot from each other, and we'll continue to stay connected throughout the year. Good luck closing out your cycle. For those of you who closed the cycle, for those of you who never stop, keep going. You've got this. And feel free to connect if you need anything from us. But keep your heads up and let's rock.